Well, everyone sounds good. So should we dive in? I quite
Let's
liked it
go.
last week where Scott was just like, play the intro, and then it worked, and then it happened. But now I feel like I've forced it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I can't really say anything more than that. So all I'd say is play the intro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Dice Please, the bite-sized Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by the people at Blood Bowl Live. My name is Chris Coe. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Scott Bryant. Scott, hello, hello.
Good evening, Christopher. Good evening, sports fans.
And also joined once again by the Mr. Tom Hovell. Tom, hello, hello, hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I feel like that was too many hellos, but we've done it now, so I guess we'll just have to plow through. If you listened to last week's podcast, you will have heard us talking about tournaments. Which we were doing in preparation for the fact that all three of us were going to a tournament, and we have come back from a tournament that took place last Saturday. It was at Alpha Games over in Stanton. It was their SummerBowl 2024. And we're going to go through and see how we got on and what happened. And did we come back better players? Did we come back worse players? What went right? What went wrong? And generally how we got on throughout the day. Before we do, probably worth sort of just reminding us all what the particular rule set for this tournament was, because it is always a little bit different at different places. And this one had its own quirks as well. So, Tom, what was the rule set at Alpha? What did we have to prepare for?
Yeah, sure. So the team value was 1150k, so 1.15 million gold pieces. The other kind of scenarios
Isn't that the same as 150? Or just for those who are more decimally orientated?
in old money, the difference in feet and inches,
Is this because you're so down with the kid? You've got to remind us, the older generation, that
Yeah. What it was like in shillings and pence. Exactly.
That's customer focused. Love it. Sorry, Tom.
That's all right. But the main thing was secret weapon spectacular was the key thing on the actual tournament. So the organizer was offering every team a gift of 50,000 gold pieces for bribes. The other kind of maybe a difference for people watching who may go to different tournaments and have different tournaments was around the SPP budget and star players. So I know that some tournaments, it doesn't cost you any any SPP for star players. This one it did. So not only did it cost you both your gold pieces, but it also cost SPP. So for tier 1 teams, it was 36 SPP, tier 2, 48 SPP, tier 3, 54 SPP. And all the standard scenarios where only one player in tier 2 could have 2 skills, 2 players in tier 2 can have 2 skills, and 3 players in tier 3 could have 2 skills as well. So you've got, that was the main inducements. That's the main SPP. The interesting thing around the star players was around the fact that, as I mentioned, not only was it the gold pieces, but it was also, it would cost you in your SPP. So the likes of Griff, Morg, and Hatflem was going to cost you 36 SPP. Deep Root was going to cost you 18 SPP, and then the majority of everyone else was going to cost you 12 SPP, apart from a couple of people who were going to cost you 6. So the likes of Gracken Crumbleberry, Acorn, Grimjaw, Willow. However, because it was the secret weapon spectacular, any star player with any kind of secret weapon didn't cost any SPP. So Bryce the Slice, Max Spleen Ripper, Helman Wolf, Fungus the Loon, and Non-Blood Blackwart were all 0 SPP for secret for star players. The final thing was because it was Alpha Games SummerBowl 2024, they do a great thing about weather. So they'll just use all the weather tables for the particular seasons. So it was the summer weather table. Hope that was all clear.
Very comprehensive. Very comprehensive.
Beautiful.
So we went over our teams last week a little bit as to what we were kind of planning to bring. Tom, we didn't cover yours in great detail. So what team did you bring? What skills did you give?
Yep. So I took vampires, and I actually did a 5 o'clock in the morning realization that I should take a big guy. So I was originally going to take 2 throwers, 2 runners, and the rest in thralls with Wilhelm Chaney. I chucked out a runner and took out also a additional thrall and brought in a Vargeist. So my runner and 1 thrower had blodge, so 2 skills, block and dodge on both of them, and then my other thrower had leader. Then I had the Vargeist as well. So yeah.
So I think we did say last week we didn't think you were taking it, but we did both get a message quite early in the morning saying, I'm thinking I'm bringing a Vargeist. So a nice last minute swap. Scott, your Skaven team, were there any major changes from last week? What did you do skill-wise?
No changes from last week. I had, let me think, I had tackle on a blitz. 3 rerolls. So I had a tackle on a blitzer. I had guard on a blitzer. Roger was as per the box. I had cannoneer on a thrower. I had strip ball on a gutter runner, sprint on a gutter runner, and I had kick on a linesman as well. So that was my plan. I'll come on to what I learned about rat ogres and what I would do different next time in due course.
I'll try not to sound too happy when you tell me what you learn about rat ogres. I'll do my best. I will try.
It's Tuesday. It's been a long day, so if we can keep the smugness and satisfaction down to manageable levels.
I promise nothing. I had no changes from what I planned to do with my lizards. It was the 6 Saurus, it was 4 Skinks, a Chameleon, a Croxagore, and 6 block given to those Saurus. So kind of my standard go-to at the minute. Probably something I need to sort of switch up a little bit and give some variety to those Saurus, but that's my standard, and that's what I went for. So we turn up tournament-wise. For anyone who's not familiar, it was a Swiss run tournament. So the first round is randomly drawn, and your second and third round depend on your results, and you're matched with someone with a similar result to you in the previous round and the similar standings in the table. So first round gets drawn, and it's safe to say that none of us had a particularly good first round. I think that's probably fair. I'll take the first bullet. And I was drawn against Snotlings, a team that I have never managed to beat in my Blood Bowl life. I played Matt, NAF name Unsullied, and lost 2-1. And he also out-cashed me 4 casualties to 2 as well. And it was a phenomenal Snotling lineup that he played. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was 2 trolls. It was 2 trolls, both with block, 2 pump wagons, one with frenzy and one with guard. Ripper Bogrot was in there as well, just to top it off. So much strength outstrengthed me on the line with the Snotling team, which was absolutely which is terrifying with my Saurus lineup, and just played very well, outplayed me pretty much solidly. I did manage to get a touchdown after conceding in the first half. I got a touchdown in the second half, and then And then he then grinded me forward. I had so many lizards off the pitch. You know, I couldn't match him. He had a whole team of snotlings on the field, and he had his second entire team of snotlings and riotous rookies on the bench waiting to come on. At no point was I going to have the numbers advantage.
Sorry, Chris. Question on that. You said you scored a touchdown to bring it back to 1-1. Did you kick or receive in the first half?
I kicked in the first.
So you kicked. So then you got the 1-1 draw. 1-1. So 1-1 at half time. Did you think I'm receiving? Can I go for a 2-1 grind here, despite the numerical?
Remember, I think it was 1-0 at half time, and then I scored quite quickly in the. He's made me score quite quickly in the second half. There was, I was getting battered down to players. There was a route that I could run through, to sprint a skink as quickly as I could through a gap, multiple dodges to get far enough away that he couldn't be hit. And then he did enough to make it so I couldn't possibly stall. And then he had enough time to plow forward to get the 2-1.
Very good. Well, just to continue then on the theme of snotlings with riotous rookies. So I also played snotlings in my first game. First time I've played a pure snotlings. I played against snotlings as part of Underworld before, purely as snotlings. Similar to you, it was a very, shall we say, meta-friendly list. And kudos to Peter for pulling it together. So it had one pump wagon, 2 trolls. One was they are trained trolls, aren't they? Yeah, snotlings. Had Skitter with the old gutter runner star player with stab, and also had the orc star player. Can't remember his name, top man. Gazka. Yeah, him as well. So I kicked to start with, and then it was set up first turn, nothing. But then the first turn, you'll love this, Chris. And I did look over at this point when the dice rolled. So went for my first blitz with my Roger. And what do you think the Roger dice ran, gentlemen? What do you think I rolled?
Could it be anything but a 2 to 6? Or is it 1?
No. He activated. He did activate. He didn't punch the bejesus out of another rat, which is a positive start. So positive starts. So when he went for the blitz, what do you think?
2 skulls or was it 3 skulls?
It was 2 skulls, of course, wasn't it? So that was a absolute shocker to start with, and it just went on from there. And if I'm honest with you, it was a numbers game and a very interesting build because he had obviously the strength 5. He had the characters with the skills, but with snotlings, of course, you've got riotous rookies. You can bring lots on. Plus, he's got Skitter, who's got stabs. So if you leave, as you would normally with a gutter runner, you just go up and park a player or 2 next to a gutter runner. So even with the 2-up dodge and a reroll, it doesn't give them anything for free. And if they fail a dodge, then you can always kill them. But knowing that this the star player for a Skitter does have stab, sort of makes you think twice. Basically, and it got to a point I was losing players. Ironically, the casualties were the match ended up 2-0. Peter scored on turn 8 and turn 16. He won the casualties 2-1, but this was the stat which really summed it up. In terms of KOs, I had something like 14 KOs on stunties now, as well as on everything else. Didn't turn them into casualties. So that was a bit of that sort of tells you where your afternoon is going, doesn't it, really? And it got to a point where in the match, when as a player, you're losing players. And at one point, I think I had 6 KOs. I think 4 by 2 casualties, 4 KOs from Peter. I think I had 2 self-inflicted KOs, as you do with Skaven. And we got to a point whereby, as a rat player, you're forcing and rolling too many dice to make simple things happen. Yeah, so you've got to roll a dodge to dodge out, then another dodge before you even can get into a support position. Then you got to roll a dodge in terms of maybe doing an activation, a blitz, or what have you. So Yeah, it was very painful, but it was a good learning experience. But that started sowing the seeds of doubt because as soon as I rolled the 2 dice, as soon as I rolled those skulls, I did look around at all of the yourselves and our friend, colleague, and partner in crime, James, who's also playing as well. And I looked and I thought, yeah, they know. If I was looking, they know why I was looking at them. So
To
first
put
game,
that into
sowed the
context a
seeds.
little bit, to put your first game into context, you were drawn against Pete, who has probably won at least half, if not more, of the tournaments that I have ever been to that he has been at. Like,
Yeah.
phenomenal player, and phenomenal with his snotlings as well. Like, really, really, I think you probably had on paper the toughest draw opponent-wise of the three of us in that first round.
I think I'd like to play Peter again. I think he was, we did have a good game. And that's one thing to call out about the atmosphere. Alpha. Everybody played really well. It was a very good day worth of Blood Bowl. I think from my perspective, it also showed I was very rusty with the rats. Hadn't played them in months. Sorry, since ADBBL season 7, and they felt rusty in terms of wasn't getting the exact positioning right. And against someone like Peter, if you don't get the exact positioning right, especially if you're rolling bloody awful dice, you've got no margin for error, and that really cost me as well. So lesson learned there: do more practice with the team that you're taking before you go to a tournament.
Well, if I thought my first game went badly and you thought your first game went badly, let's go to Tom and talk about your first game.
Tom.
Hold my beer, watch me do this then. So my first game was against Chaos Dwarfs, against actually a friend of mine actually who when I used to play at Alpha before, really nice guy. I already knew I was going to be on the back foot because he's a very good player. Never played against Chaos Dwarfs before. I won the kickoff and stupidly said that I'd kick. Don't know why, but hey, rookie mistake. So,
sorry, we saw this in one of our league matches, didn't we? In terms of what happens when you kick to dwarves, it's like don't.
Exactly, and I was like, I thought, well, I could do loads of wonderful stuff. So kickoff happened, kickoff event happened, and it was a Fisher's Ref. I lost. So straight away, Wilhelm Cheney gets sent off. Okay. So even before we've even shaken hands to say good luck and all that sort of things, that's happened. Okay. Then his turn starts. And within turn 1, first person to leave the pitch in a KO was my Vargeist. Second was a Thrall. So I'm already down to like 8 players, 9 players. So it's like, oh, okay, this is going to go well. And then one thing we haven't mentioned is that we have took our brand new dice. So
we did take our brand new dice.
So we got brand new dice for. If you can read it, it says "new dice, please." Why have you not got them with you? You should carry them on.
No, I'm work traveling. People don't know what I do. What?
And which dice did you roll, Tom? Which colours?
I rolled. Well, this was so when I then started playing. I then started rolling these dice, the red ones, and the red ones apparently only have 1s and 2s on them. So basically, I was rolling 1s every 5 minutes. I then transferred to the blue dice, which are equally terrible. So if you're lucky enough to ever get a copy of these dice and you get options, do not take either the blue or the red one.
No, the yellow ones roll hot.
Why
do you think I picked it? The yellow ones roll damn
the yellow ones work perfectly. But so by the halfway time, I had a lovely full kind of group of people sitting in the boxes watching their other last three members on the pitch. The final score was 2-0 to Andrew. But I was pleased that my score of 19 1s being rolled throughout the entire game was
I mean, it's incredible.
beautiful for a vampire team.
Oops, he said.
I
I
mean,
think you need that on a t-shirt, Tom.
Yeah, I have to say we were probably one of the quickest games because it got to a point where I burnt through my 3 rerolls and my leader reroll by turn 3, and then I literally was like, right, I'm going to move. I've rolled a 1, bloodlust. Okay, I'll bite that thrall. That thrall's now injured. Off it goes. I can't do anything else now, kind of scenario. So it was a terrible, terrible start, but it was a good game. It was interesting to actually play against Chaos Dwarfs. Don't often see them come up. So they are lethal. The Minotaur, especially with that he'd added claws to it, was vicious. It was like clearing the pitch quite literally. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, I did. When I think it was about half time in my game, and I came and saw how your game was going, and it did make me feel a little bit better about my game, like because I'd lost a lot of players, but nowhere near as many as you had. But so round 1 didn't go well for any
Can
of
we
us.
just? Can I just put a caveat in here for any listeners or viewers? Just a reminder that we are not the meta best Blood Bowl players in the world. We have never claimed to be. And yes, your Blood Bowl dice are at risk if you do not keep up future repayments. Thank you.
Not the best meta players in the world yet.
Yet. The viewer, the listener, come on the journey with us. This is for you.
Round two. We get to round 2. Because of the Swiss system, in theory, we're all playing people who have probably lost or drawn their game. That's kind of how Swiss works. You get matched with someone who performs similarly to you. So, you both had a much better round 2 than I did. So let's start with Scott. Scott, how was your round 2?
Round 2 was better. The Rogue behaved. He did all right. But as Roguers do, even when they're supported, they draw a lot of attention. I played Lizardmen, the Lizardmen opposition evening, Adam. Adam was playing basically 1 Crocs, 6 Sauruses, all with Mighty Blow. That was it. And I was thinking, if I don't stay out of reach now, this is going to be a long, painful afternoon. Did a classic 2-1 grind. We both had chances to take extra touchdowns. I did stall towards the end for that 2-1, especially when it was a classic Skaven. Left the ball free at the pitch, drew back. Adam came down the pitch, sort of slightly off centre. So I did what Skaven do, throw a picks up, runs round, gives it off to a gutter runner. He goes down and we just screen everything, run off into the corner square, wait a turn. And thank you very much. So I still got lots of injuries. I still think I had, at one point, I think I was down to 8 on the pitch. And the Rat Ogre I don't think he made it to the second half, which I'm sure you'd love, Chris. So yeah, it was not, again, I felt rusty. Things I could have done nicely, things I did really well. Definitely pleased to get the W in the column, and then get ready for the next game. What about you, Tom? How did you do? How did you feel? Did you grow as a person and a player?
So it was the tournament as a whole. Yes, I felt that I've grown I've definitely expanded my experience playing against new teams because obviously Chaos Dwarfs never played against, and then I played against gnomes. So this is the first time I've played against gnomes. I've seen them being played in our league, and they looked quite squashy, and I can confirm they are very squashy.
So when you were told, oh, you're playing gnomes, did you think, did you approach it like with maybe a bit of trepidation, think, oh, I don't know, because on paper they're a tricky team, they can be very, manipulative around the board, or did you think, oh, I'm going to look forward to punching the living daylight out of these little fellas?
I was going for blood, really was. It was an interesting one because again, vampires being very swingy, and now only ever using these dice here, the yellow ones. They
Yellow
were
ones
rolling
roll hot.
They
Yellow ones
roll
roll
hot.
hot.
I think they're obviously clearly weighted. I haven't put them in the microwave or anything like that. So please don't phone in and write in and complain about my loaded dice. It's just the way they are. The fact was that it was they're so squishy, gnomes. They really are. And equally, the person was playing against hadn't played against vampires either. So it's that. So again, you talk about what do you learn and stuff like that. It's coming up against teams you've had no experience against, and knowing all these new skills. So he did not know about Hypnogaze because that's not a new skill, but it's very rare for teams to have that. He didn't really know that was coming down the road. And the illusionist, bit of a damp squib, to be honest. I was like, I'm going to block him, and then he'd be like, I was like, do you want to move it? He's like, yeah, I'll move it there. I was like, well, it makes no difference to me. Because again, with vampires, most of them were strength 4 or strength 5 Vargeist. Vargeist was just munching them up. So it was an interesting game. I won that game 3-0. But I had 7 casualties by the end of it. So I'd actually killed 7 of the little people. And also the other key thing here was that the trees rooted. So I've never played against trees. So ironically, the person playing on the opposite side, because I was like, oh, what's rooted mean? They said, well, they can't move from that spot until you get a touchdown, or you knock them over. So I was like, well, I'm not going to touch them. And I literally walked the ball up to the end zone, and then just turned my vampires around and started devouring. And that was how it went. My little tip is first thing to go is it's a beautiful sight. Set the Vargeist on woodland foxes. They are delicious.
Big, yeah. We'll get to my last game in a bit, where I had equally as much fun against the same gnome team. But so for the two of you, before we get to my second loss of the day, how did you feel after your first loss, and then how did you feel after your second win? How confident were you going into game 3?
Okay, so from my perspective, I kind of always see myself as the underdog. Tournaments to me are still a new thing. I knew a lot of the people who were going, and I knew how experienced they were. So I knew I was coming up for a tough game. The fact that my dice let me down in the first game as well kind of didn't really help. But 2-0 loss, I thought was not too bad. And then after the second game and winning 3-0, I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be quite interesting." Then, what about yourself, Scott?
Similar in the fact that as I'd come off an absolute kick-in last Thursday against Amazons, and I know I was playing Amazons, but then the Amazons I played in my third match on the weekend weren't just all dodge and block across the board, which is a terrifying thing to face. First match, by the second match, I was glad I'd play 1-1-1, or play 2, draw, lost one but at least I got 1 win, and that was against Lizards. And I've got this thing about Lizards, playing them. They don't fill me with joy when I ever play them. Sorry, Chris, see you smiling there. So I was pretty confident. I thought, it was the last game, go for it, a bit of YOLO, etc. And yes, I was quietly, pleased to be playing Amazons. And then we'll tell me about that. So it did reinforce, though. It was sort of narrowing my thoughts about Taroga or not Taroga. And also it was reminding me despite the win, I still felt very rusty with the Skaven. They were my big learnings. So, Chris, you've waited patiently there. Tell us all about your game 2.
So, game 2 was against Jack, NAF name Vulture Squadron. It was his orc team, proper like old school metal orc figures, which was really cool to just play against. It's always, like when you see the older sets, it's always really cool. And his 4 big and blockers all had guard, which again meant that facing them strength for strength on the front line was tricky, because all the guard there meant getting the blocks in the right places, was difficult. And it wasn't going badly. Like first half, I was getting players down and it was okay. Again, I scored quite quickly. And then and then as far as sort of the Orcs go, it was a classic 2-1 grind. They came back and scored and put it level to 1-1. And the second half was just an absolute slog for both of us. There was like, he was moving the ball forward sort of quite slowly. I was doing well to kind of hold him off. Got to about turn 5 or 6, and I just had to start just chucking things in. I just had to start chucking skinks in to try and do uphill blocks and things like that. I just had to try anything because it was not going to go my way. But I feel like I positioned quite well. I started the second half with 3 players prone because of pitch invasion. And I then had 1 player or 3 players stunned, sorry. And then I had a player in the first round that again went stunned. So my turn 1 of the first half, I had 4 players on the pitch who were just lying on the ground, which did mean that like getting people in the right place to have a good defensive line was a bit trickier. And a bit more of a struggle, but Jack just sort of wore it down. We both, it was a proper slogfest in the second half, and I think it was always leaning towards going Jack's way rather than mine. I did get the ball free a couple of times, but then the crucial point where I needed to then pick that ball up or dodge that skink out, I'd either used up my rerolls or a reroll failed, and I didn't get what I needed. So lots of opportunities for me to have broken free and go forward and maybe get a winner and keep, or even keep it a draw, but none of them quite came off, unfortunately. So it was 2 losses from 2 for me, which not the first time at a tournament I've had 2 losses from 2. And the last time I had 2 losses from 2, I went home with a wooden spoon. And I was thinking to myself going into game 3, there's no way in hell I'm leaving. I do not want to leave here with a wooden spoon. I want to leave here with 1 W. I'll take 1 W. I just want the 1. So round 3.
So just keep going, Chris. Keep going. We're on a knife edge. You're looking for that big W. Tell us what happened in match 3.
So I played Harry, who had just come off the back of a 3-0 drumming by Tom with his gnomes. Firstly, I want to shout out to Harry. Fantastic fun to play against. He'd never played gnomes before. He told me he hadn't actually played tabletop Bloodbowl for a number of months. So it was very much, he's not got a local Bloodbowl scene, so he tries to get out to tournaments. So this was some of his first Bloodbowl in a while. He came. He left with the wooden spoon in the end, and he had a great day. He seemed to be really enjoying it and learning a lot of the gnomes, which are a tricky team to get on top of. And I unfortunately I needed the win. I wanted the win, and I went in and I absolutely battered him. Vargeist running around killing foxes. I absolutely applaud it. My Croxagore did exactly the same, charging around, taking foxes out. At 2-0, before I scored my 3rd, I had cleared every single gnome and the 2 trees off the pitch, and then got my 3rd touchdown. I think I got him down to 2 or 1 players, and that player was stunned on turn to then go in and get my 4th touchdown. And then it was turn 16. And my only regret in the game, my dice rolled so hot. Like every single armor break was a 7 or above, and then I was just getting casualty after casualty after casualty, and it was you do start to feel bad because you want everyone to be there and enjoy it, and when you feel like there's nothing you can do because dice are going against you. it's all. I did almost start to feel the same. I was sort of like, there's nothing Harry can do here because my dice are just giving me armor breaks every single time. He could play the best Bloodbowl in the world, and I'm just taking players out, and then he's just being left with nothing to use. And you do start to feel a bit bad, but I'm very, very happy. I was relieved and very happy with
It didn't help me.
4-0 win, 9-0 on casualties.
It didn't help that you were singing "It's Coming Home" all the way through.
Was that what the noise was?
Yeah,
I thought he was in pain.
yeah. The fact that you kept on saying "in your face" was a bit harsh. No, just a joke.
It was
No.
it was a great game, and credit to Harry. He was great fun to play. I hope to meet him in a tournament again another time because he was good fun to play against.
Absolutely.
So that's me leaving the tournament with 1 win, 2 losses. Tom, how did game 3 go?
Yeah, so it was interesting because, like, I think a bit like yourself, I got 1 win and a loss under my belt, and for me, as I say, new to tournaments, it does, for me personally, help that I've got at least a win or a draw going into the last game. I think it's that situation, especially with this Swiss kind of style of tournaments, that you go, okay, well, at least I've come away with something, a win or a draw. So I was in quite buoyant mood. I went and played Ben Fisk, who it was the actual tournament kind of organizer. I have to say, as always, he does a great kind of tournament. I know him, played him before, and he came with humans, and it was a fun game. I know he's a very skilled player, so again, maybe a bit of psychological on my part that I was kind of thinking, well, I'll try and score a touchdown, but he's very good at positioning. And as we all know, humans can just turn on a die and just go in a different direction and be bashy or be quick or whatever. I think there was one point that I may have got him a little bit panicked, where I tried to run my runner down the sideline when I only had 5 players on the pitch. Again, my dice were rolling hot, but rolling 6s when I only needed to get 2, and that was the problem.
Wrong dice at the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, we counted it, and I rolled 5 6s 5 times in a row. So, but they were all for like bloodlust, and then I rolled a 1 on a go for it, which was like, oh, okay. So it was quite fun. I tried my tactic of lob the ball up the pitch.
Did it work?
Now this was a good one. Basically, I ran in to a 3 up, to a 3 people who were around the ball that was on the ground. So it was basically for my guy, it was a 5 up. I got a 6. Okay, I picked up the ball on a 6. Okay, and I said, right, I'm going to lob it all the way down there. Okay, no, actually, no, tell a lie. I said I'll lob it to my runner. Okay. And they were like, okay, so it's going to be a long, so, and with all the things, it was going to have to be a 6 up. I'll roll a 6. I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And he was like, I've got that person there who can intercept it. Oh, it'll have to be a 6. He rolls a 6. So it's like, oh my goodness, and I could have been away, and he was like, that was just hilarious, because then it bounced, because obviously he didn't catch it. So for an interception, you have to roll to intercept to see if you successfully intercept, and then you have to roll to see if you catch it. He didn't catch it. It bounced and landed on one of his catchers who caught it. So it's like, oh. So, but it was a great game. The final score on that was 2-0 to him. So that was the end of my little tournament. So that was good fun. How about yourself, Scott?
So first of all, before I go into so I played Amazons. It was against Daryl, NAF named Dazza Mac. Dazza, if you are listening, because I know you said you'd sign up for this podcast, I do have your ball. And usually I want to mention that because one, it's a metal World Cup ball. Because as the guys know, I magnetize all the bases on my models. Usually I over magnetize them, and they can basically pick up anything metal within a 50-foot radius. So when I got home on Sunday morning, checking the models, having words with various Skaven players in terms of their performance rating and what we look at for their development plans, it was stuck under one of the dirty gutter runners. So I've left a message with the Alpha guys.
It was because you're in a bad mood. They didn't play well, so you take the ball away. That's what you did.
Yeah, someone who might be bitter, cynical, and not caring about their fellow Blood Bowl players might think that. Tom, you're right. They might think that, but I know we're not that sort of camaraderie here, so I don't have to worry about that. But thanks for mentioning it anyway. It wasn't my ball, and I was taking it home. Yeah. So we started off. Roger was crap for the first turn. Then he turned it. He was okay for the second turn and the third. Skaven did punched a nice hole through the Amazons and scored on turn 3 or 4. By that time, the Roger had been targeted and he'd been KO'd despite APOC. Basically coming back then, and the Amazons really then started to turn it up. They got all of their dice were really singing, whether it was, a stumble, whether it was both down, and some of them had block, whether it was POW. And Darryl played really well, and then he stalled onto turn 8 to get the 1-all at the half. Going into the second half, I had, I think it was at that point, I had 7 players on the pitch, and this was with 1 reserve as well. So I had 7 players on the pitch against a full 11 Amazons. And it got very painful from then onwards. So 1-all, I was kicking to Darryl. Darryl sort of marched it down the pitch. It was a lot of fun. He was killing basically all the rats, and it ended up he did score on turn 16. His turn 16, and at that point, I had my last 3 turns, I had 2 rats, 1 thrower, 1 lineman, and most of the time they were just usually stunned or prone. That's why they weren't leaving the pitch. So it was a very interesting experience, but it was played. We had a good laugh, and it was all about YOLO. So it was a lot of fun. So Dazza, we'll tell you where to mail us at the end. If you can mail us, we'll mail you back. Get your address, and I'll get that ball sent back to you ASAP. Because it's a metal World Cup ball, so it's not the sort of thing you just find randomly in someone else's bag. If you happen to be looking through someone else's bag, I don't know. Anyway.
It's in a couple of weeks' time. I'm building up to a couple of weeks' time when we're going to do an episode where we're going to go through all comments and feedback we've received about episodes. And I know that Darryl has commented on our big guy or no big guy episode. With a very interesting point that actually he makes very well and has made me rethink a particular big guy. But we'll go over that another time. Okay, we are past the point of bite size this week, but we had a lot of games to cover and we wanted to go through it. So, as a final point from each of us, Tom, any particular thing you're learning or taking away from this tournament?
It's when you think you're taking the best team, but then you realise people have got other ideas, and that I came across so many different types of setups that I want to now take for my teams in the next tournament.
Nice. Scott?
For me, practice more, or at least do some practice games with that team you're going to play before you actually play them. And reconsider spending 150k of your budget on one player if you think you can benefit it elsewhere. I have a plan. I will not give up on the big guy, Chris, but I do need, as a coach, to broaden my horizons and to grow as an individual in the Blood Bowl community. I need to think about other things, but I still bloody like a big guy. On the Blood Bowl pitch, that is, just to clarify.
No, we'll cut that sound point. That's fine. That's
I'm sure you will.
That, Scott. I think my takeaway is probably block across the board is great, but I need to try some other things. I think the prospect of guard on all 6 Saurus is probably not wise, but could, if you played a really bashy game, could cause your opponent some trouble. Yeah, I think there's other things for me to try there rather than block across the board, or maybe still block on 4, but a couple of guard or a couple of something else would be worth having a go. So I think that's the main thing for me. Perfect. Great. That is probably our time for this week. A quick just shout out to everyone over at Alpha Games and Ben Tio for the day. It was a great tournament. Myself and Tom have been to a couple there, and they always run a good tournament through the day. So well done to them. Thank you so much for having us and having such a good day out. It was really good. Great. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tom, once again for joining me this week to go through the tournament stuff. It's been great. We have been.
We need to tell people. We need to tell people.
That's true.
You can't leave them hanging.
Here we go. I'm completely away with the fairies. Scott, if people want to get in touch with us, how do they do it?
If they want to get in touch with us, Christopher and Darryl, this one goes out to you, Dazamak. You can email us at newdiceplease, all one word, all lowercase. That's newdiceplease@gmail.com. Yeah, we're elsewhere as well. But Tom, where else could we find us?
Yeah, so we also are on Blood Bowl Live on YouTube. So that is not only for New Dice Please, but also for our league games down at Arvarks and Dragons in Woodbridge. You can also see us sometimes on Instagram under Blood Bowl Live as well.
Yes, Instagram is a real life thing, which is definitely
and Spotify
there and definitely gets our attention. Yes, and Spotify. We're on Spotify as well.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Now we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We have been New Dice Please, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.